Alright guys, welcome back. So today what I'm gonna do is I've got two knives left to finish up. But one of them I actually wrecked while I was trying to finish it. This is the mini-cleaver, and this one is going to get some Kirinite scales, some Pearl Kirinite scales. I've already cut out the scales. When I had made this blade, I was going to polish it. I got a really nice thin edge there, but I ended up heating it up a little bit too much, so I'm worried about the temper. So I'm gonna go ahead and just remake this one. I'll relinquish this one to the scrap pile, and that's what we're gonna do today. Real quick thing, yesterday I picked up my K-Back VFD. This is the K-Back 27, and I will be mounting that to my grinder. I've got quite a few updates on my grinder coming. I've got a 6-inch drive wheel coming, and I'm gonna actually make this a direct drive. So I'll be taking these off. I'm gonna have to make a plate that's gonna mount to here, and I'll have my motor here, and I'll have the drive wheel directly on the motor itself. So that should smooth things out a lot. And then the eventual plan, what I'd like to do with this area is build a bench here and have this sitting on a bench. The reason for that is I want to put hinges on this mounted to a plate so I can actually flip this horizontally, so I can have this as a vertical and a horizontal. I'll still keep this little guy right here because I've got it set up with my small wheels. I'll probably make the table the same height as this. Anyways, that's gonna be the plan. Gonna do some pretty sweet updates. I'm really excited about those. But before I get those done, I do need to get these last couple of blades put out. Also, next updates, I apologize for the echo in here. I know it's really annoying. It drives me nuts too when I edit these videos. I'm sure it's terrible for you guys. But I'm gonna end up doing foam, like the mattress topper, the egg crate foam or whatever. I'll be putting that up here, but I want to get all my lighting done first, and I've kind of got some ideas of what I'm going to do for lighting. I'm going to try and keep it a little less expensive, maybe use some of the lights that I had in my sea can, my shipping container shop, but that's going to be the plans. But anyways, for today, let's just go ahead and make this knife. So we've got our blank roughed out here. Now the next step of the process, I'm gonna put a little bit of black marker on the edge. And I'm gonna use my super duper knife maker scribe. I've got a video on how I made this thing, really quite simple. There's lots of things you can do. One way around that, if you do not have one of these, if you wanna mark nice center lines, is you use a drill bit that's roughly the same diameter as the thickness of material you're using, and you lay that down on a flat surface. I use a granite surface plate, anything that's really flat and hard and smooth, and you scratch your lines into it, and that way we can have a visual that we're gonna grind to. So we'll head over to the granite surface plate and we'll put in our center grind lines. All right, the next part of this process, we are going to put in a little Spanish notch. It was just a little tiny groove right in the blade there. It gives a definite stop to the blade. Sometimes it's hard to sharpen this transition right here. And so I like to put a little groove in right there because then your blade stays perfectly flat to that point and it makes sharpening the blade much easier. So to do that, all I'm gonna do is use a needle file. This is a triangular one just to start it. I just kind of guess where I think would look good. Okay, now we've got that established, our little notch right there. We'll take a round file and we'll finish that off. Looks good to me. All right, so we've got our Spanish notch in there. And what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna heat treat this. I've got my rough grinds done. I'm at about, let's see, what were we at? This here's 30 thou, 29.5 at the tip, 29.5, so really nice, clean, straight grind there. I find that when I look down it, I mean, your eyeballs usually don't lie to you, so this thing's pretty much ready. And I usually like to do a little bit of grinding after heat treat. Sometimes during heat treat, you get some weird surface finishes that happen. Just, it all depends. Certain steels, it's more likely to happen with, but I used to do my finished grinds and then heat treat and then just kind of sand them up, but I actually like to leave a little bit of material in there, so I've got probably about 4 or 5 thou on each side that I can grind down post heat treat, and that'll take care of any little tiny things that might happen during the heat treat process. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna go ahead and just clean this up. I'll take some lacquer thinner, get rid of all the Dicom blue, and get this thing cleaned up, and we'll throw in the heat treat. All right, so we've got our heat treat done on this blade, and I'm gonna throw it in the sandblast cabinet and we'll get it all cleaned up, and then I'll go ahead and do my final grind. Before I do the final grind, I'm gonna actually drill out for the scales, so we'll get that done. And while I was waiting for heat treat, I didn't have anything else I could really work on. I got kind of bored, so I made this. A really tiny little knife. Obviously, I think this one's just gonna be some type of a pennant or something, but this was actually the same material. This was a scrap from this, and just a solid piece of O1 there. I kind of ground it down, but I did video the whole thing, so I might actually do a little video. It's just GoPro footage, but it might be kind of a fun little video to edit and put up. Anyways, back to work. Let's get some scales ready for this thing. All right, so what I'm gonna do now, I'm gonna put on a felt belt and some green polishing compound. We're gonna give these bevels a much shinier finish. Alright, so for the most part, we've got our scales pretty much taken care of. The one thing I still need to do is kind of just rough this surface up on some really aggressive, like 80 grit sandpaper or something. But I've got this detail finished up, and what we're going to do now is start polishing this portion of the blade. Now, I blasted this whole thing, and obviously that's going to really help the epoxy to adhere, so I'm going to leave this part. I'm not going to do too much here, but essentially from where my scales are, that line right there, this way, I'm going to try and bring it up to a fairly high polish. The customer who had ordered this knife wanted a mirror polish, and I'm not quite going to get the mirror polish. I said we can make it really, really bright and shiny. Not quite a mirror polish, but we'll just start. We're going to start at 220, 400, 800, and then I think I've got some 2000. And we're just going to kind of clean this thing up and get it really popping. Alright guys, well thanks so much for joining me today for this little knife build. Hopefully maybe you learned a few things, maybe just enjoyed seeing how I make some knives. This was one of the early designs that I ever started selling, so it's kind of fun to come back to it and try different versions. Like I said, my client that had ordered this wanted pearlescent, like a mother of pearl type handle. So these are Kirinite scales, pearl colored. Really happy with the way they turned out. And he wanted a really, really polished look. So we got not quite mirror, but it's fairly close. You see a reflection in there. And then I wanted to leave the grind lines in, so you can see that was still finished on the belt grinder. And all in all, I'm quite happy with the way this blade turned out. Anyways guys, thanks so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. You can click on this little circle right here. That will subscribe you. And on this side, I'll leave a couple more videos for you to enjoy. Thank you so much for watching.